Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jasmine. So today I'm super excited to share this video with you because it's my second ever Planet Zoo build on my channel. Up until now on my channel I've only posted Sims videos, but I'm really excited to create content with the game on my channel, but also to just get my teeth into this new pack because it is absolutely amazing. I'll talk about it a little bit more in detail later once we start seeing a few more of the objects, but today we are creating a penguin habitat. I've already created an otter enclosure on my channel, so I'll link that in the video and down below if you're interested in going and checking that out. And last time, it was my first time building in the game in a very long time, I mentioned in the video, and for that reason I largely just focused on landscaping and kept the construction and the sort of custom fencing and all of that kind of thing to a minimum. So in this one I felt much more confident with the build tools because I was struggling last time because it was so different from The Sims. So we went to absolute town in this enclosure with some of the build aspects that I was really excited to use. So at the front here you can see that I have created a viewing platform that's going to end up being a harbour style boardwalk using the new objects that we got in the pack that I absolutely love. They are so gorgeous, and you can see there that I just created a custom fence using concrete and glass pieces and then a little raised area, and that's going to be like the land area for the penguins, and then the pool in the back. And you'll see a little bit later on that I end up making the size of the enclosure much smaller because I always do this. I always overestimate the size of the enclosure, and then when I put the animals in they look like tiny little dots in the middle of this massive space. So I do go back and I just shrink everything a little bit, but I just wanted you to see the original process of how I built everything to begin with, and then we'll change it a little bit later on. And also I just want to mention before I get into anything else that at the end of the video I went to a real effort to capture a load of different cinematic shots of the penguins and screenshots of the build and the penguins, and they have got some really cute animations, and I made sure that I let the game run as I was building, and so my penguins can have loads of chicks, and they are so cute. And there's a really gorgeous animation of, well, it's not necessarily gorgeous, you might think it's kind of gross, but I think it's really cute. It's an animation of the adult penguin feeding the chick, and I just think it's so cute and heartwarming. So yeah, check out that because it's a really cool animation, at least, even if you think it's kind of disgusting. And so now you can kind of see that I'm adding this circular pathway area, and that's also going to be using the same harbour style objects that I mentioned in the front viewing platform. And in the middle of that circular path I end up putting like a couple of little penguin sculptures on some rocks, and then I built a custom sign saying Penguin Cove as well, and I put that there. And I used Penguin Cove because that's actually the name of the penguin enclosure at my local zoo, Banham Zoo, and I go there all the time. I'm a massive zoo nerd. I go to loads of zoos locally, and yeah, that was where I got my inspiration from basically, because in that zoo they have got a very similar walkway that kind of goes inside the enclosure, and you can't at any point sort of be too close or touch the penguins, but you do get a really good view because, like I say, you kind of walk through the enclosure. I think the penguins have tunnels underneath the walkway as well, and I couldn't do that in Planet Zoo because I think the zookeepers wouldn't be able to get to that side of the enclosure if the height of the path was too short. They wouldn't be able to access it, and therefore they wouldn't be able to clean up after the penguins, and it would get really gross and grimy, and we don't want that, do we? So I didn't do that, and I just kind of turned it into like a little sculpture area, like I say. And then at the back of the enclosure is the deep diving section of the enclosure. So we've got some really deep water, and then a viewing area for people to watch the penguins as they're swimming around. And I did have to make that fence a lot lower in order for people to be able to see through the glass at water level, obviously, because it's too high at the minute. So I do change that, and then I think in the end I add like a souvenir shop back here as well maybe, and decorate that. And this area was so tricky because that path that curves around to the right to meet up with the other path obviously around the front, that did not want to be smooth, it did not want to look good, so I ended up going to town decorating it, surrounding it with a load of rocks, trees and foliage to make sure that it looked really, really pretty, and it kind of turned it into a feature rather than like a really horrible plain path area. Like I said, I made a real effort with this enclosure to decorate all of the boring stuff as well as just the enclosure for the penguins, because I didn't do that last time, and I love all the little details. Like, it just makes me so happy for everything to look as perfect as possible. So I really made an effort, and I hope you like it. And sorry to all of the people watching this who are used to Sims videos, because Sims videos tend to be a lot shorter than Planet Zoo videos, and to be honest with you, the footage didn't take up that much longer. I would normally say that Planet Zoo videos tend to be longer because it takes longer to build enclosures. That would be the case if it's a really big build, but in this case I think just the cinematic shots at the end and the screenshots took up a lot of the time, and you can hardly be mad at that. To be honest, they're probably the most engaging thing about the videos, so we can't really complain about that, can we? So yeah, sorry if it's a little bit longer than normal, that's just the reason why. In this case, feel free to just watch as much as you are able to. I'm just grateful for any amount of support that you can give my channel and my videos, especially if you're a Sims viewer coming and watching Planet Zoo content and you haven't done that before, then oh my god, thank you so much for supporting me. I really appreciate it. And when I was talking about that small curved walkway in the middle of the enclosure, I forgot to mention that I built up a load of rocks in the enclosure in front of that walkway, and the penguins can actually climb onto those rocks and be really close to the people walking by. So I thought that was super cute, because that would make for some really good viewing experiences. But they can't escape, so I did test it, and I did make sure that, you know, I had their traversable area map on and they can't escape from it. So that's really good, and I didn't have to change anything. I was kind of nervous that that might not be the case, but it all seemed to work fine. And now you can see that I'm just moving on to the viewing area at the front, and like I say, I used these sort of wooden harbour objects that came with the aquatic pack, and they are just so gorgeous. I absolutely love all of the objects in this pack. Honestly, they like literally every single object is one of the best of its kind that we have in the game, I think. So like I say, I love these harbour objects, I love the fencing, I love all of the poles, the colours of them are just really beautiful, that light wood tone, and I love the recolorable rocks. They are so realistic because they look like fake zoo rocks, because they've got sort of less realistic texture on them. They kind of look a little bit more fake, and I absolutely adore them. And I love the fact that we can recolor them and make them match, you know, some of our architecture maybe, or other parts of the enclosure, whatever we choose to do. And then I also love the fact that we got the recolorable wood objects, the grid objects that you can use for creating architectural structures. They are amazing. I absolutely love that we can recolor them because we've needed that for so long. And in this video I used them to decorate, I think it's the keeper hut and the merchandise shop, and I decorate them with like bright blue sort of nautical themed shed type areas. I don't know how to describe it. I think the aquatic pack advertisement said that it was Oregon architecture, or like inspired from that area, like the type of buildings that they have there maybe. I don't know, I just kind of thought that it looked beachy, it looked nautical, and I thought it looked really cute. And I can't remember if I kept them, but I think I added some deck chairs in front of the keeper hut near the front viewing platform. I thought that was cute. And then you can see that I tried to decorate the curved walkway with those harbour objects, or the harbour flooring, but it just wasn't working at all. So I just kept the grey wood and then added the fencing around it. But I kind of dislike how the different wood tones look with each other. That did upset me a little bit. So it would have been nice if we had like an actual floor path that matched those wood colours, but oh well, I mean, that might be asking for too much, I think. But yeah, anyway, it looked okay in the end. It just could have been that much better, I think, if it was matching. And what else did I like from this pack? Oh my god, the waterfall object. So I do add a waterfall in this build. I add like a layered waterfall using that object. So I tried and failed to use it in the otter enclosure because I tried to bridge two areas of water basically, and it was making the water tool fail because it was getting in the way, I think. So I didn't use it in that one, but I did use a layered waterfall in this one, and it worked because you could just have them as objects and sit them on top of the water and sort of bring them down rather than actually having to place them in the water and use the water tool in that way. So that worked and I was really, really happy with that. And they're so handy as objects to have because making custom waterfalls is not necessarily really difficult. I mean, I think it is if you're making really big ones, but it just looks so much neater with the objects that we received in this pack. It just looks more like a style that we would see in an actual zoo, you know, with a really straight waterfall or water line. Yeah, the waterfall itself is just really square and neat, and that's kind of what you would expect to see in a zoo. Obviously it's fake, it's not real. So yeah, that was a really, really nice feature to add. And then all of the sculptures that we got in this pack as well. We don't actually have that many sculptures that I actually like to use in the game, so it was nice to get some pretty metal ones, just ones that were quite realistic to the animals that they represent. So you can see me add now the penguins to the rocks, and I make sure to add like a little iron or metal object in between the penguin's feet and the rocks, just to make it look a little bit more realistic, partly because when I lowered the penguins down, the rocks kind of clipped through their feet, so I wanted to make sure that that wasn't happening, but also sort of bridge the gap between the two. But also I thought it was quite realistic that they would have like a little bit of help attaching the statues to the rocks, just to make sure that they're secure and they're not going to fall. So I thought that was a cute little detail. And then now you can see that I'm adding these wooden planks to the front stairs just to make sure that the colours match a little bit better. Again, I'm kind of annoyed that the grey wood looks a little bit off next to that beautiful yellow wood. So I think in the end I changed that grey wood to more like a stone. And oh my god, I just realised that I forgot to add these planks of wood to the back pathway, you know, the one that curves around to look at the underwater viewing gallery. Oh, I'm so annoyed. I was fully intending to add the same kind of effect to those stairs because I had to do some steep stairs back there, but oh, I forgot to do that. So I'll just imagine that that's done when you look at the screenshots. Although maybe not, because I think I left that bit wooden, so maybe we're okay. We'll see. And then in terms of a shelter for the penguins, I used this pre-made shelter, but then I sort of cut it in half and then I changed the colour, I think, as well. So yeah, this is an object that we just got as a shelter in the pack, which is quite handy. I really, really liked it. It was probably a little bit too big for this enclosure. It kind of took up a lot of space and it was quite boxy and it didn't fit too well. But to be honest with you, I was originally planning on making a custom shelter for them in the same beach hutty style as the staff buildings that I mentioned, but I then realised that the place that I was going to do it, I had filled with rocks. I think I was going to originally put it near that archway or near the keeper entrance. I ended up really, really liking how those rocks looked, so I left them how they are and I just added the shelter that came with the pack because I thought it was really cute and, you know, it would definitely do. So and then you can see now that I'm just making some education boards, and I do change these. So originally I make them sort of vertical like this, and then I go back and I sort of flip them downwards, makes them look a little bit more realistic because they're a little bit flat at the minute and it just looks a bit weird, and I prefer the way they turn out. So yeah, and I think I turn them, so now they're on the sides of the walkway, but I think what I do is I turn them around so that they're in front of the glass wall instead, and I just have one instead of two, and I kind of put them in the other viewing areas throughout the enclosure. So there's one at the back near the underwater viewing, and then there's one on the walkway as well. So, and this is one criticism that I have of the game. I know it's still quite new. Well, to be fair, we have had quite a few packs, so it probably should have happened by now, but we really don't have that much in terms of education for the guests. We do have animal talks, I think they're called. So if you're not aware, we got a base game update at the same time as this aquatic pack, and you can just see that penguin walking onto the rocks just deciding that it wants to come and say hello. So that's a little bit of a good example of what I was talking about earlier, about that walkway being a really, really good viewing spot if they decide to walk up there. But yeah, so with this aquatic pack, around the same time we got a base game update, which means that we can add animal talks as a form of education, and that basically means that we can place an object in front of an enclosure, and it can't be in front of water, it has to be in front of land, and the keeper will come and stand by this object, and then they will give a talk about the animal like you would see in a real zoo, and then they have an animation where they throw food into the enclosure, and that kind of draws the animals in close to where everyone's standing, obviously because they're standing listening to the person talk about the animal. And yeah, it's a cute little detail, and I'm really, really happy with it, and I really want more features like that in the game because that is so realistic. That's definitely something that you would see in in a zoo. But I was just going to say that we don't really have billboards or anything like that. We only have like a couple of objects for education, and they're not very varied. They're all electronic, and it would just be nice to have some posters or some form of education that's, obviously we've got speakers as well, I think, but yeah, just some decorative objects that are a little bit more varied than the screens we have in game, because I'm just a little bit sick of them and it's really quite hard to hide them sometimes and make them look good. So that would be nice. Now you can see that I'm making the little keeper hut like I mentioned before in front of the enclosure. So like I say, I use all of the new objects from this pack. I use the recoloured wood, I use the recolorable roofs as well. I forgot to mention them, they are amazing. Another amazing feature of this pack I really love, because a lot of people make custom roofs, so they place individual tiny objects all together in a group so that they can recolour the individual tiles of a building, and it looks amazing. But it's so nice now that we just have these really simple roofs that we can recolour however we want. And you can see that I place a similar version of the building at the back of the enclosure, and that's going to turn into a merchandise shop. I'll change that up a little bit later on because at the minute it's in the form of a keeper hut, so I do change that. And then I add like a little canoe object by the side of it with some rocks as just a bit of a decoration and to go along with the nautical theme. But yeah, I'm really happy with how these little blue buildings turned out. I'm not sure if I actually changed the other building at the back to be red. Maybe I do, or maybe it stays blue, I can't remember. But yeah, I think they're really cute, and I just love this theme, or these build objects that came with the pack. It's such a cute theme. I think they did an absolute great job with it, and I'm so happy with it. I'm also a little bit disappointed that my screenshots weren't as good as they could possibly be, because I really like this front of the enclosure, but you can't really see any of the penguin enclosure on the inside, and the lighting was a little bit weird in this build, so it kind of ruined a few of my screenshots. Just from certain angles it didn't look as good. I kind of think that's the problem with this game, is the lighting is so realistic that it's amazing when you get good lighting, but then when you get a bad angle it looks terrible, and that is very true to life. But now you can see that I am just decorating the water treatment and the energy, I can't remember what it's called, but it's basically the source of energy for the enclosure. I'm decorating them in the same sort of nautical style as I mentioned earlier. I think I make this one red. But yeah, if you've not played Planet Zoo before, basically the guests don't like to see staff areas, and you can hide them away using decorations, so they kind of are a little bit happier to be around them if they are hidden with walls and decorations and things like that. But otherwise it makes guests really unhappy if they can see them, and I think these two objects in particular, it makes guests really unhappy if they're around them that much. So yeah, I was sure to sort of hide them around the back of the enclosure so you couldn't really see them. Also, it just sort of helps with access to them, so the guests aren't getting in the way of the keepers. They can just have easy access without other people getting in the way, and then obviously it's really near to the enclosure door as well. And then I decorate this little area in a similar sort of way. I add some of the same fencing ideas as you can see in some of the earlier parts of my build, and this small roped fence idea you will see that I've done in quite a lot of places throughout the build. I really love that idea, and I use it quite often just because it's so easy. It's such an easy one to do. It only requires 2 objects. Well, it's quite easy to copy and paste any idea, but you know, it looks really realistic without it being too much thought, I guess. So I like it. And now you can see that I'm just decorating around the enclosure. So I'm adding loads of rocks, loads of greenery, some beautiful trees. Really love these trees. I think they're gorgeous. I'm kind of annoyed that I chose this biome to build this enclosure in. I just already had this sandbox zoo open for my otter enclosure. I just thought it would be easier because it's already got like staff facilities that I needed, so it would be much less hassle. But I kind of wish that I chose a more of a mountainous area because it would just suit like the trees and rocks that I added a lot more. Maybe if it had that pretty backdrop, whereas it kind of looks a bit odd with, you know, the sort of English countryside or wherever wherever this is supposed to be in the background. Those rolling hills just look a little bit out of place, and the types of trees that are in the background are a little bit out of place too. So I tried to hide it as much as I could in the screenshots, but it was quite hard. It was pretty obvious still, so that's a shame. The fact that I've not built a whole zoo around this enclosure as well is quite frustrating, because in certain angles that you want to take pictures or cinematic shots of the enclosure, it looks really, really odd because there's just sort of gaps where there's nothing else around it, whereas in real life obviously there would be loads of other enclosures and other things going on that would just fill out the image a lot more and make it look a lot more realistic. I'm definitely excited to start my own franchise zoo on the channels. So if you like the sound of watching me, create more content in Planet Zoo, definitely subscribe or consider subscribing, because although I've only got 2 Planet Zoo videos up on my channel at the minute, I really, really want to do more. And what I want to do is create a sandbox mode zoo on my channel. I want to really explore, beautiful architecture and buildings and beautiful enclosures as well, and just basically go to town. And then on my Twitch, I'm going to be streaming a franchise mode zoo, and I'm probably, if you're watching this on the day that I've released it, and I'm hoping to release it on Saturday morning, so if you're watching this Saturday morning, I am probably going to be streaming for the first time Saturday at 3 p.m. UK time. So if you want to, feel free to drop by, say hello, because I'm going to start out with my Gilmore Girls save file in The Sims 4. So if you've not been to my channel before or you don't already know, I'm in the middle of making a Gilmore Girls save file, and I've got tons of videos of me making builds and characters from the show. So I'll leave a playlist full of those down in the description and in the video itself. In case you're interested, feel free to go and check that out. So I'm going to be doing some building for that on stream on Twitch later today when you're watching this. So go and feel free to join me. I would absolutely love to have you if you're a Gilmore Girl fan especially. But then after that, after we've done a bit of that, I'm basically going to try, if I can, start my first ever franchise mode zoo in Planet Zoo, which I'm super, super excited about. And if you want to be a part of choosing what biome we use and what kind of architectural style we will eventually be, having a look at, then definitely join us, because I'm really, really excited. And we will do some cool building for that franchise zoo, I promise. But me streaming Planet Zoo is basically mostly going to consist of us just looking at cute animals and animations of animals. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be pretty casual, pretty chill, hopefully. So I can't wait. So you will have just seen me add the signs in that I mentioned, those custom signs saying Penguin Cove, and then I go about adding in the waterfall to the rocky area as well. And the colour for the waterfall is also customizable. So like the rocks, like the building objects, you can also pick the colour stone of the waterfall, which is really, really nice detail, and it just means that you can match it to the rest of the stone objects that you use in the game, which I think is really, really nice. And then I think the last few things that I do is just add a load more rocks around this walkway area near the underwater viewing platform. So yeah, absolutely tons of rocks just to fill it out a little bit, because it was looking a little bit odd and it wasn't going to be very nice for my screenshots. So I just added a whole load of rocks. I did it quite roughly. I just, made a couple of groups of rocks and then just added them in bulk, and I cut out most of that footage. I just wanted to give you an idea of what I did in case you wanted to pick up any tricks that I use. And then, like I say, I do just end up changing this last building into a merchandise shop. But now we're going into the cinematic shots and then later on the screenshots. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked it. Let me know what you thought down below, and if you want to talk about anything that I mentioned in this video, then please do comment down below. I would love to hear your thoughts. That's it for me. Like I said, if you want to join me on Twitch later on today, then please do. I'd absolutely love that. If you liked this video, please like, comment and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye guys.
podcast.